LIS 204 course. From today, I'll be taking the recorded classes and I'll be uploading it on the Google Classroom. We have learned about different types of sources, reference sources, information sources. In today's class, we are going to learn about the information services that are provided by library and information centers. This concept of information service can be better understood by going through the definition of ALA Glossary of Library Terms. It says, an agency which supplies information, especially the current data, in easily available form, not readily available otherwise. That means an agency, that is a library, will supply the information, especially the current information, in very easy form, which is otherwise difficult to find or difficultly which is not readily available in the easy manner for the users. This information service term origins from the term of personal assistance, which is known as the reference service. Its origin dates back to the personal assistance. According to World Encyclopedia of Library and Information Science, 1980, reference service had its beginning in the last quarter of 19th century. By the time of World War II, most of its basic form and techniques have been developed. Most historians of the reference service find it convenient to begin with S.S. Green's 1876 paper named Personal Relationship Between Librarians and Readers, presented at a conference in Philadelphia. Until that time, the predominant view of function of library services emphasized the acquisition and organization of library materials. The library clienteles were expected to use the materials independently, that is, by themselves. Green, on the other hand, pointed that the users were unskilled in using the catalog to find the materials and they lacked knowledge necessary to select the appropriate materials appropriate to their needs. Personal assistance of such users would benefit them and would result in their taking of more positive view of the library. During 18th and 19th century, the terms which also existed along with the term of personal assistance were aid to readers and assistance to reader. But by 1980, the term were replaced by the term as standard term of reference work or reference service. The growth of special libraries to disseminate scientific and technical information to scientists and researchers led to the development of information service. This information service is an umbrella term which includes reference, alert, review, analyze, and consolidation type of services. Types of information services. We can have different types of information services. They can be categorized in many ways. Here I'm taking on the basis of popularity and on the basis of reactive or proactive kind of services. On the basis of popularity, we can have 10 different types of services. They are reference service, current awareness service, which is also known as CAS, selective dissemination of information service, that is also known as SDI service, indexing and abstracting service, literature searching service, translation service, document delivery service, reprography service, digital library service, which includes the services like institutional repository creation and maintenance, e-resource database access providing and access management uh, kind of services, web page design and application design services, e-learning platform maintenance and creation services, discovery services, etc. Under security and vigilance service, they are not informative in nature, but yes, these are to some extent they can be informative. Uh, Very little informative in nature. That's why I have included here. Those are the RFID or biometric services and the remote and authentic access services that are provided by the libraries. These information services can also be divided into two types, like the reactive services or on-demand services. They are provided in response to the user's request. Examples of these services are reference service, literature search, bibliography compilations, document deliveries, etc. The proactive services, that is anticipatory, in anticipation of the user request. Examples of these services are bibliography compilations on specific topics or popular topics, current awareness service, newspaper clipping service, indexing service, abstracting service, project information files or reporting service, user education programs, review service like information analysis and packaging, and some of the value-added services. Which are these proactive services are provided voluntarily by the users without any query request. You expect the user to come to you with the necessity or with a request or seeking this information by large numbers, not by one person, but many people. The library staff are expecting that many people will come with in search of those information queries or requests. Then before the query comes, what you do is you prepare a tool to address those kind of requests or information need. Those kind of services are called as anticipatory services. The first one of the on-demand service or the reactive service is the reference service. Reference service help the users to define and identify his query correctly, bearing in mind how he intends to use that information. Since this can affect the choice of the resource he or she will be making, the reference personnel then inform him what catalogs, what directories, files, secondary publications or databases to consult to seek out the relevant information for himself, explaining if necessary how the user should go about his search. That means the user themselves can search directly. That's known as the direct search. Alternatively, they themselves do the search for the user if desired so by the user. That means the library staffs are conducting a search on behalf of the user. That kind of service is known as delegated search. For both these types of searches, reference tools or aids readily available in the library or information unit may be used. These aids include card files of the library or the collection of the secondary documents like indexes and abstracting periodicals, etc. Often, a search may require use of external information sources, some of which cannot be accessed at once. An example of such sources is computerized databases, which are not accessible online. That means the offline databases. In such a situation, the query is recorded on a prescribed form for conducting search subsequently and providing the required information. The reference services can be divided into two types. ready reference service or short-term reference service. The next one, other one is the long-range reference service or the extended search service. Let us try to understand this ready reference service. Usually comprises handling reference questions of fact-finding nature or identifying a few documents relevant to the particular study. These kinds of needs are clearly understood without much discussion, and the sources required are usually fairly easy to identify. Such services do not take much time, and hence they are known as short-range reference service. This service is distinguished from the purely directional guidance in that the reference staff need to consult some sort of reference source rather than simply answering from his personal knowledge. The professional requirement of the reference staff here is the knowledge of the reference source, their contents, organization and presentation, besides the skill to match the query with appropriate reference source which contains the answer. The following table presents a few illustrative examples of typical questions and possible sources to find the answers. If the user query is relating to a word, phrase, their meaning, usage, synonyms, antonyms, etc., then generally the possible reference source would be the language dictionary or a thesaurus. If the query is relating to the technical terms in different subjects, then the possible source would be the technical dictionaries or the special glossaries. If the query is related to the persons, then definitely the possible source would be who's who or the bibliographical dictionaries. If the query is relating to the places, then the geographical dictionaries or gadgeters may be the possible source of information. Facts about a country, background, information on a subject, then probably the possible source of information is statements, yearbook, or encyclopedias, or etc. Long-range reference service as against the short-range reference service or of research level questions that require extended searches, perhaps several hours or days, or sometimes even longer periods on continuing basis. It is not a one-time job. It can be of continuing nature queries. Answering such questions takes a long time because of number of references to be searched regularly and information supplied during the course of this research work. Therefore, the service is known as the long-range reference service. The marshalling of the facts and figures from a wide range of secondary and primary sources, together with the need to write the background notes and the explanations, would call for highest expertise in the reference service. In such instances, the user may be an active researcher, a celebrated author, a report writer, or an industrialist urgently requiring the data on complex legal and regulatory matters. It is also possible that the person may be well versed in a subject of inquiry and the reference sources pertaining to the field. The help the person might seek from the library would be the research assistants which would provide all the reference notes and the materials that may be needed for his project. No doubt such reference and information support has to be of high quality. In handling such long-range and often intricate reference questions, it would be useful to learn the procedure and the practice that are usually employed for the purpose. These may be conceived as a series of steps as given below. The first step is the reference interview. The next is determination of the subject of the inquiry with the precise initiation of the topic. Third is the identification of the primary source that may provide the answer, primary searches from secondary and tertiary sources. Fourth step is spotting the places of possible answers to the topic. Fifth one is organizing and presenting the collected information in the form of a report acceptable to the user. The last is, after getting the feedback, fill up the gaps to complete the process of the reference and the information support you have provided. The most important step of this is the reference interview. The process of dialogue between the user and a member of the reference staff is termed as reference interview. This technique would demand high communication and articulation skills to elicit the exact nature of the inquirer's needs and assistance and research support. The useful details that would eventually emerge from this dialogue would be highly useful in conducting the search for finding the necessary answers. The details are objective of the question and its modification in the course of the interview, personal characteristics, particularly with reference to the person's cooperative tendencies, depth of the search required on the subject of inquiry and his knowledge of the sources, expertise available in the library. Once this preliminary step is handled well and the relevant details of the questions collected, the rest of the steps may be very difficult. May not be very difficult. Provided the reference staff knows the procedure of the search and the relevant bibliographical and reference tools. General help involves providing what Foskett calls sympathetic personal assistance to the visitors. He also calls it humanism in practice. Visitors to the library are people of diverse characters, some shy, some other arrogant. However, the reference staff would be sympathetic to their problems and must go a long way to help them find answers that may meet their needs. There is other type of service which is known as the referral service. Referral service are to be distinguished from the reference service discussed earlier. Referral service do not provide the user with the document or the information actually needed for his query, but refer him to the sources such as secondary publications, information units, professional organizations, research institutions, and individual specialists, etc., and tell him where to find them. They utilize directories and files on the sources, if necessary, specifically created for the purpose. Referral service can function on their own or in cooperation with the other services. It is very difficult to measure the effectiveness of such service unless they keep themselves in close touch with the sources of information and the users. Such a task is easier only when referral services offered for the clients is in small geographical area. A referral center is some sort of information desk for the scientific and technical community which does not provide inquiries directly to the information they need, but suggest sources, organizations, or individuals likely to satisfy the clients. The Science and Technology Division of Library of Congress maintains one of the most active referral center. The National Referral Center, an efficient referral center, maintains an exhaustive inventory of significant information sources and also publishes directories of such sources. Difference between a referral center and libraries are: referral center provides sources of information, while library provides not only sources of information but also documents as well as the needed information. Referral center stocks only access tools such as directories, guides, union catalogs, and lists, while library stocks the primary, secondary, and tertiary literature also. Referral center provides only enquiry services. Library provides enquiries, references, bibliographical, and a range of other services also. The next type of service is literature search service. Literature search service is considered as an extension of the reference service. An important aspect of literature service is ascertaining the purpose of the search. In assessing this aspect, one has to understand the scope, depth, and precise field of inquiry. This may necessitate a dialogue between the user and the information specialist. A quick assessment of nature and extent of query will indicate whether the search to be carried out is for specific information, or for a few select references, or for a comprehensive bibliographical information, which is usually the requirement of the research workers. Once the parameters of the queries are understood and analyzed, a suitable search strategy can be formulated for searching different information sources. Such of the expertise in literature search depends on identification and choosing the most appropriate source to be searched and the order of searching them. Expertise in literature search can be developed only by experience. Knowledge of subject field of search would be an asset in providing literature search service. Online databases and CD-ROMs are increasingly being used for providing literature searches. The next service is Bibliographical Compilation. This is a conventional service offered in many libraries for a long time. Universities and special libraries have to offer this service quite frequently, as a clientele as well as their information needs are fairly well defined. Some of the important aspects that call for attention in such compilations are: you should know the bibliographical objectives and purpose of that bibliography compilation that you are making. Selection of the topics to be included in the bibliography, scope of the topic in terms of its full ramifications, coverage with reference to the type of documents that are required to be included, coverage with reference to the age of reference to be included, mode of presentation of entries, that is the arrangement, whether alphabetical or numerical or chronological, what mode of presentation the entries has to be made, supporting indexes to be prepared, updating the procedures if necessary, and mode of productions. The short bibliographical topical subjects areas may also be compiled on occasion to highlight some recent literature. These type of services may be on the eve of seminar, workshop, or such other occasions. The next service is Document Delivery Service. Information searches conducted by the library or the information specialist from databases usually are from bibliographic, much less on the full text database. Since the bibliography databases provide only bibliographical reference and abstracts, the user often requests for copies of full text of certain references that are of interest to them. Supplying the full text against such request is called as Document Delivery Service. The full text can be sent to the users as photocopies, microforms, or through electronic transfer through online network. While the photocopies and microforms are sent by post, electronic transfer can be made by fax, electronic mail, or internet, or any other available network. Normally, the copies are not supplied by fax or electronic mail, etc. due to various reasons. The document delivery service is a restrictive service and usually constrained by the provisions of copyright and intellectual property right.